Hello, and welcome to our even scarier tale. Don't forget to join the channel and like the video to aid us. Let's get into our tale. The Secret of the Mysterious Cabin.
Deep within the mysterious depths of a woodland, hidden among dense bushes, lay an extended forgotten treasure. Through the roadside, next to an antique and abandoned cabin, the Broken Rattle. According to legend, this cabin changed into once the house of our own family that lived deep inside the forest at some stage in the 1800s. However, one fateful night, a bad occasion passed off and the family vanished without a trace. It turned into said that the cabin had, due to the fact that grew to be a cursed region. No one dared to check this curse. However, a younger adventurer named Daniel did not consider on this legend. To him, it became merely a tale and an opportunity to uncover the reality. Driven with the aid of his ardor for journey, he decided to get to the bottom of the thriller of the Broken Rattle. One autumn day, Daniel set out for the cabin. As he followed the direction, the silence of the forest reassured him. However, as he approached the cabin, the atmosphere grew an increasing number of ominous. The eerie whisper of the wind, the unsettling rustle of leaves, and the unusual distant rumble dispatched shivers down Daniel's spine. Nevertheless, he pressed on with determination. Eventually, he reached the cabin. The door creaked open with a menacing groan of its rusty hinges. Stepping internal, he noticed the ground littered with damaged glass shards and furniture covered in dust. He looked around and began to discover the rooms. In one of the rooms, he saw a rug embellished with unusual symbols. The partitions had been adorned with peculiar markings and inscriptions he couldn't decipher. Daniel cautiously searched each room in an attempt to examine extra about the cabins beyond. However, despite his efforts, he observed no clues about the fate of the family. Lost in idea, he all of a sudden felt a weird sensation inside the cabin. The surroundings appeared to shift, as though a person had been respiration nearby. He speedily scanned his environment, however, noticed nothing. That changed into handiest silence. Suddenly, he heard a atypical sound. Starting as a faint whisper, it grew louder and echoed among the cabin walls. Daniel's heart commenced to race, and sweat beaded on his forehead. Thoughts whispered to him that the cabin's curse become actual.
At that moment, a shadow rapidly moved throughout the room. Daniel recoiled in horror as he noticed a dark silhouette wandering within the cabin. Its eyes gleamed with a pink mild, illuminating the surroundings regardless of the absence of mild. Daniel quietly observed the shadow, deliberating escape. However, he realized the door he entered via turned into nowhere to be determined. Panic gripped him as he searched for an exit, however located none. Feeling trapped, he persevered to observe the shadow. As the shadow traversed the darkish corridors of the cabin, it appeared to develop in length with every step Daniel took. Echoes crammed the cabin, as though a long-hidden entity had been now roaming freely. Daniel continued to follow the shadow, unsure of what lay beforehand. Finally, the shadow halted in a far-off nook of the cabin. Daniel approached carefully and saw a figure emerging from the shadows, holding a broken rattle that glowed like a beacon. Mesmerized, Daniel watched as the dark determined danced around the rattle. Suddenly, the rattle started to chime. Starting as a mild tinkling, it escalated right into a deafening, terrifying sound. Daniel covered his ears, but the chimer reverberated all through the cabin, filling each corner. The partitions of the cabin trembled, and dust crammed the air. Trembling, Daniel pressed himself towards the wall. The partitions regarded, alive, pulsating with power. Panicked, he looked for an escape route, however discovered none. As the darkish discern persevered to dance around the rattle, it slowly approached Daniel. Its red eyes bore into him. Daniel tried to retreat, but he became surrounded through trembling partitions. The shadow's breath dispatched shivers down his backbone, and the chime of the rattle resonated everywhere. Attempting to gather himself, Daniel heard the voice of the shadow in his thoughts. Though the determined's lips didn't move, it spoke without delay into Daniel's consciousness. "Hello, Daniel. You've subsequently come to me. I've been ready." Daniel's heart almost stopped. His eyes remained constant at the dark determined, unable to figure its expressionless face. "I cannot take my eyes off you, Daniel. I've been watching you. Are you prepared to be with me?" Trembling with fear, Daniel took a step, returned. Who "Who or what are you?" he muttered, his voice trembling. The dark determined chuckled softly. However, the laughter sounded greater, like a scream echoing via the cabin. "I am the spirit of the Broken Rattle, the curse of this cabin. I've been trapped here for years, looking ahead to a person like you. I want to be with you, Daniel, forever." Daniel couldn't face up to the shadow's provide. His trembling body struggled to defy the voice in his thoughts. Yet, with his closing ounce of power, he persevered to looking for a manner out. His eyes fell at the broken rattle. Perhaps it held the key to the curse's give-up. The shadow persisted to speak into Daniel's thoughts. "You dare now not touch the strength of the rattle, Daniel. The second you touch it, you'll be trapped on this cabin with me all the time. But if you include me, I'll defend you. Together, we'll rule this woodland for eternity." Daniel waged a war inside himself. With trembling palms gripped by using fear, he reached out for the rattle, however, pulled again on the ultimate moment. "No," he murmured. "I'll forestall you. I'll cease this curse." Enraged, the shadow roared, and the chimes echoed via the cabin. Daniel made one final try to seize the rattle, but the dark figure unexpectedly approached him. Suddenly the partitions of the cabin trembled and cracked. With a deafening explosion, the whole lot was engulfed in darkness. When Daniel opened his eyes, he observed himself outside the cabin. The silence of the wooded area enveloped him in a calming tranquility. He regarded up and noticed the cabin. But it became now not antique and abandoned. It seemed revitalized, its roof fully repaired, windows sparkling, and the door imbued with new life. Stepping in, Daniel surveyed the transformed interior. Everything was bathed in light, exuding an experience of peace. His gaze fell upon the rattle, now complete and radiant as if reborn. Exiting the cabin, Daniel started out to stroll quietly through the forest. He felt the curse of the broken rattle had ultimately been lifted. Justice had been served for all those lost inside the woods.